Thank you for joining us for Rockville Housing Enterprises Housing Choice Voucher Program briefing presentation. Our mission here at Rockville Housing Enterprises is to provide housing assistance to eligible families with high customer service that includes educating and supporting participating families, our landlords, and the community. RHE ensures the integrity of the Housing Choice Voucher and public housing programs. Rockville Housing Enterprises Customer Service Center is located in Rockville, Maryland. Services provided at RHE are recertifications, voucher issuances, resident services, inspection information, eligibility, interviews, and transfer of units. Today, we will cover how the voucher works, how your rent portion is calculated, choosing a neighborhood, choosing a unit, inspection and rent reasonableness, request for tenancy approval, also known as the RFTA, and program rules. Our income limits for 2024 for a family size of 1 is $54,150. For a family size of 2, $61,900. For a family size of 3, $69,650. For a family size of 4, $77,350. For a family size of 5, $83,550. For a family size of 6, $89,750. For a family size of 7, $95,950. For a family size of 8, $99,500. The income limits equals the maximum household income to qualify for this program. Residency requirements. You must have at least one U.S. citizen or legal resident residing in your household in order to qualify for the Housing Choice Voucher program. If all of the household occupants are not U.S. citizens or legally in the United States, you may not qualify for the Housing Choice Voucher program. RHE will pay a prorated subsidy based upon the number of legal occupants. Housing Choice Voucher equals flexibility. The advantage to the Housing Choice Voucher program is that you can take your voucher to any community and any landlord who is willing to work with the Housing Authority. What is portability? Portability means that your voucher is good anywhere in a U.S. or U.S. territories that has a public housing agency with HUD's Housing Choice Voucher program. This link shows you Maryland's PHAs. You may visit www.hud.gov/states/Maryland/renting/HA websites. If you have a preference of living in the city of Rockville, you may port right away to any PHA in the U.S. If you did not reach this preference, you must lease up for 1 year in the city of Rockville before porting. Helpful tips about porting. Payment standards, which play a role in how much rent you pay, vary from one housing authority to another. RHE's income limits could be lower or higher than another housing authority's limits, which could change your eligibility to port. The following can vary from one housing authority to another: payment standards, income limits, background check requirements, occupancy standards, reasonable accommodation decisions. If you are thinking of porting, please contact the Destination Housing Authority for their income limits and payment standards. Congratulations, you have a voucher. Now, what do I do? The clock is ticking from the day you receive your voucher. Vouchers are issued for an initial 90-day period. Extensions of up to 120 calendar days may be granted. If a family is not assisted and the voucher is not used for 180 days, the family's program participation will be terminated. The family must reapply to the waiting list. If you are porting from another housing authority, the voucher expiration date will be 30 days from the initial PHA. The expiration date is located on the voucher. If you are unable to find a suitable unit, you may request an extension. Please keep a list of landlords you have contacted and the results. Calculation of your rent. The rent and utilities should not exceed the voucher payment standard. You are required to pay the greater of $130, 30% of your adjusted income, or 10% of your gross income for your rent and utilities. If the gross rent and utilities exceeds the voucher payment standard, you may pay a maximum of 50% of your adjusted income. If you select a unit that requires you to pay more than 50% of your income for rent and utilities, you will not be allowed to move into that unit. REG will use the utility allowance schedule to estimate your monthly utility costs when calculating your rent portion. REG will pay a housing assistance payment, also known as HAP, check directly to the owner, landlord, by the first week of each month. Along with receiving your voucher, you will also receive a 30/50 sheet that indicates how much money you will be expected to pay each month for your housing expenses. Payment standards. The program is designed for the tenant to pay 30% of their monthly adjusted income. The payment standards are based on the zip codes within the city of Rockville. The total tenant payment, also known as TTP, is what you have to pay towards rent and utility allowance. The utility allowance will likely be less than your actual utility bill. To keep your TTP at 30%, rent plus utilities need to be at or below the payment standard for your voucher size. However, there may be some flexibility for certain income. Remember that the more you go over the payment standard, the more you will have to pay. Unit size, REG occupancy standards. Your voucher depends on the household composition. The head of household will be assigned 1 bedroom. The head of household with a spousal relationship will be assigned 1 bedroom. 2 persons, regardless of age or gender, will be assigned 1 bedroom. Live-in aides are provided a separate bedroom. Reasonable accommodations are available upon request. Your voucher size will only increase by the birth of a child or court-awarded custody of a child. Other household composition changes that may result in an increase of the voucher size must be approved by the PHA, the initial PHA, and the landlord. This is REG's voucher program, fair market rent comparison, fiscal year 2024. Fair housing. It is against the law to deny housing based on race, sex, marital status, physical or mental disability, color, religion, national origin, ancestry, presence of children, source of income, sexual orientation, and age. It is illegal to refuse to make an accommodation for persons with disabilities, inform a family a unit is not available when it is, advertise to a preferred group. It is against the law in Montgomery County for landlords to refuse to participate in the Housing Choice Voucher Program. Montgomery County Source of Income Law. Landlord/owner must consider and evaluate all prospective applicants. No owner of HUD-assisted housing may inquire about the sexual orientation or gender identity of an applicant. Filing discrimination complaints. In your packet are the following brochures/forms. You will receive a fair housing brochure, HUD housing discrimination form. Remember, although you may not get the unit you wanted, your filing discriminatory complaints will open the door for the next person that encounters that landlord/owner. If you require assistance, please contact either the following agencies: Montgomery County Human Rights Commission at 240-777-8450 or HUD at 1-888-799-2085. Low poverty areas. Living in low poverty areas are advantageous because children perform better in schools, lower dropout rates, better grades, higher college attendance rates. You have a better employment opportunities. There is a reduced crime rate and increased safety, access to better quality housing, access to better quality medical facilities, and access to better shopping areas and transportation. Unit searching tips. View the following websites: www.mdhousingsearch.org, www.gosection8.com, www.rent.com, www.zillow.com. Apartment shopper's guide from subway stations or grocery stores, local newspapers, or search online. Realtors ask for a rental listing, a guide to rental facilities in Montgomery County, Maryland at www.montgomerycountymd.gov/DHCA. Suggestions when looking for a rental. When going to meet a landlord, make a good first impression, dress appropriately, be on time, communicate your strong interest in the property, compliment specific aspects of the unit or the location, and how well it has been maintained. Don't complain about past landlords, and be prepared with references, employment history, and rental history. What do landlords want? Simply put, most landlords want three things: tenants who will pay on time, tenants who will respect the property, and tenants who will follow their lease. Please note, RHE does not give the prospective landlord any information about the participant. The only information we provide is the family's last known address. Selecting a unit. Before you decide this is the unit for you, make sure you check the following. Make sure you are looking at the unit you will be renting and not a model unit. Look at the building, check out the neighborhood. Do not just visit during the daytime, also visit during the evening and nighttime hours. Understand what utility costs you will be required to pay, and understand what you are responsible for on the outside, such as lawn care, snow removal, trash, etc. Lease up process. You are responsible for paying all rental application fees. You are responsible for paying the security deposit. If your rental application is approved, have the landlord complete the request for tenancy approval form, also known as the RFTA, and W-9 form. You must complete and sign the lower right-hand corner on page 2 of the RFTA form. Return the following to RHE: the signed RFTA, lead-based paint forms if applicable, W-9 form, direct deposit authorization, approval letter. Remember, if we do not have these 4 documents, your request will not be processed and will cause a delay in the moving process. Rent reasonableness. Once the RTA is received and complete, RHE processes the rent. The reasonableness of the rent is determined. The rent requested by the landlord is compared with 3 similar unassisted units that do not receive HUD assistance. The other 3 units must be from the same area code and have the same number of bedrooms. If the requested rent exceeds comparable units, RHE staff can talk to the landlord to see if he or she is willing to lower the rent. Lease up process. Email RFTA to rfta@rockvillehe.org. Once submitted, you must check the status of the RFTA with the RHE Inspections Department. Please keep in mind that the inspection process can take up to 2 weeks or longer, depending on the date the unit is available as written on the RFTA. You and the landlord will be notified via email once a decision has been made. Be sure not to move in, sign a lease until you have been notified by RHE that the unit is approved. If you move into a unit without a passing HQS inspection, you will be responsible for 100% of the rent until the unit passes HQS inspection. The leasing process. The initial application and placement on waitlist, eligibility determination meeting, Housing Choice Voucher is issued to the tenant locates a unit, the landlord completes the request for tenancy approval, RHE approves proposed rent and determines housing assistance payment and total tenant payment. RHE conducts inspection, the lease between the landlord and tenant is signed, and the contract between Rockville Housing and the landlord is signed. Then you may move in. Your recertification occurs at least once annually to determine continued eligibility. Note, you can rent from anyone you choose except for immediate family members, including step family members. Inspire inspectable areas. Inspire establishes the 3 inspectable areas of a REAC inspection into 3 easily identified locations: unit, inside, and outside. This increases the usability of standards and streamlines the inspection process to ensure that all residents live in a safe, habitable dwelling. The items and components located inside the building, outside the building, and within the units of HUD housing must be functionally adequate, operable, and free of health and safety hazards. This streamlined approach allows inspectors to cite deficiencies based on where they are standing and eliminates potential subjectivity or ambiguity about a deficiency's location. A unit of HUD housing refers to the interior components of an individual dwelling where the resident lives. Inside refers to the common areas and building systems within the building interior and are not inside a unit. This could include interior laundry facilities, workout rooms, and so on. Outside refers to the building site, building exterior components, and any building systems located outside of the building or unit. This includes things like playgrounds, sidewalks, and air conditioning units. Lead-based paint. All landlords must complete and return the 2 forms regarding lead-based paint that is included in your briefing packet. The forms must be submitted with all incoming RFTA forms. RHE will not process the RFTA if the lead-based paint documents are missing or incomplete. Please make sure that the landlord completes page 2, section C of the RFTA form. Please note that RHE is a move to work agency. See the 2 waivers below. MTW waiver increases in minimum rent from $50 to $130. This applies to all voucher and public housing programs. The implementation effective date of this waiver, annual and interims reexaminations with an August 1, 2022 effective date and later. Families affected, all workable families, and families excluded include elderly and/or disabled head of household families. MTW waiver, alternative recertification schedule, triannual recertification for wage earners, elderly and disabled households, annual recertifications for welfare and zero income wage earners. The implementation effective date is to be implemented with annual reexaminations with a February 1st, 2023 effective date. This applies to all families, and there are no families excluded. Please note, no interim decreases will be processed during the first 6 months after initial occupancy. Per RHE being a move to work agency, interim recertifications will be limited to 1 interim per calendar year and will be processed at the request of the household. If the interim is for a decrease in income, only income decreases of 10% or more will be processed. Required interim recertifications for household composition changes or landlord-tenant rent increases do not count against the limit on voluntary interim recertification. When does my landlord get paid? Once you sign your lease, you must send a copy of your signed lease agreement to RHE as soon as possible. Once the lease is received by RHE, the HAP contract will be created between RHE and your landlord. Once the HAP contract is executed by your landlord, they will begin to receive the HAP payment. If the lease agreement is received immediately after the lease is signed, the HAP payment will begin within 30 days of receipt of the lease agreement. If it takes 2 months for RHE to get the lease, it will take 3 months for your landlord to get paid. RHE cannot pay the landlord without the lease agreement. Landlord obligations. The landlord's obligation is to screen the family to be sure that they will be good renters, look at their credit history, rental history, and criminal record history, to obey the lease with the family and the contract with RHE, to maintain the unit according to HQS and Montgomery County Housing Code, to follow fair housing and equal opportunity requirements, follow the law on security deposits, including interest payments and refunds when the family moves out, enforce the family's responsibility under the lease, notify RHE if the family does not obey the lease or if there are any other problems with the family, pay for utilities and services that he or she is responsible for under the lease. RHE's obligations are to handle the process for applications, the waitlist, and selection for the program, request and check information about the family when they enter and participate into the program, determine who can live in a unit, help families succeed in the program through prevention, intervention, and enforcement of program regulations, follow fair housing and equal opportunity requirements, inspect a unit before the family moves in, and perform complaint inspections and annual inspections, determine whether the rent requested by the landlord is reasonable, determine how much the rent the family must pay the landlord, determine how much subsidy RHE will pay the landlord and make all subsidy payments on time, establish the utility allowance for the unit, offer a self-sufficiency program and other services to help the family succeed. Family obligations. The family, including each family member, must supply any information that the Public Housing Authority or HUD determines to be necessary, including evidence of citizenship or eligible immigration status, and information for use in a regular scheduled reexamination or interim reexamination of the family's income and composition, to disclose and verify Social Security numbers and sign and submit consent forms for obtaining information, to supply any information requested by the PHA to verify that the family is living in the unit or information related to the family's absence from the unit. Promptly notify the PHA in writing when the family is away from the unit for an extended period of time in accordance with the PHA administrative plan. To allow the PHA to inspect the unit at reasonable times and after reasonable notice. If you fail to attend 2 appointments with our housing inspector, your housing assistance may be terminated. Complete your annual reexamination. Failure to complete your annual recertification may result in your housing assistance being terminated. The family, including each family member, must also notify the PHA and the owner in writing before moving out of the unit or terminating the lease. Use the assisted unit for residence by the family. The unit must be the family's only source of residence. The composition of the assisted family residing in the unit must be approved by the PHA. Promptly notify the PHA in writing of the birth, adoption, or court-awarded custody of a child. The family must report any visitor who resides in a unit for more than 10 consecutive days. Your visitor may not stay any longer than 30 calendar days in a 1-year period. Submit a written request, PHA approval to add a family member as an occupant of the unit prior to allowing them to move in. Promptly notify the PHA in writing if any family member no longer lives in a unit. Promptly give the PHA a copy of any owner eviction notice. Pay utility bills and provide and maintain any appliances that the owner is not required to provide under the lease. And please note that the Public Housing Authority defines promptly as within 10 business days. The family obligations also are to not own or have any interest in the unit, commit any serious or repeated violations of the lease, commit fraud, robbery, or any other corrupt or criminal act in connection with the program, engage in drug-related criminal activity, abuse or alcohol or violent criminal activity or other criminal activity that threatens the health, safety, or right to peaceful enjoyment of other residents and persons residing in the immediate vicinity of the premises, The family must not sublease or let the unit or sublet the unit or assign the lease or transfer the unit. Subleasing includes receiving a payment to cover rent and utility costs by a person living in a unit who is not listed as a family member. Receiving Housing Choice Voucher Program assistance while receiving another subsidy for the same unit or a different unit under any other federal, state, or local housing program. Damage the unit or premises other than damage from ordinary wear and tear, or permit any guest to damage the unit or premises, including damages resulting from non-payment of utilities. Receive Housing Choice Voucher Program assistance while residing in a unit owned by a parent, child, grandparent, grandchild, sister, or brother, or any member of the family, unless the PHA has determined and has notified the owner and the family of such determination that approving rental of the unit, notwithstanding such relationship, would provide reasonable accommodation for a family member who is a person with disabilities. Most common reasons for terminations are failure to pay tenant rent portion to the landlord, failure to pay utilities, failure to get PHA's approval prior to allowing someone to move in, failure to report income changes, failure to sign HUD consent forms at recertification, failure to recertify, use and manufacturing of methamphetamine, lifetime sex offender, engaging in illegal drug use or has a pattern of illegal drug or alcohol, any violation of the family obligations. Please be aware you cannot have possession of more than one unit, one voucher unit at a time. Cap payments will only be made on one voucher unit. Be sure to move out completely or of your old unit, return the keys, and get a written confirmation of your move out date from your landlord before you move into the new unit. If you have possession of more than one unit, you will have to pay the full amount of rent to one of those units. Informal hearing process. The PHA must provide participants with the opportunity for an informal hearing for decisions related to any of the following PHA determinations: determination of the family's annual or adjusted income and the computation of housing assistance payment, appropriate utility allowance used from the schedule, family unit size determination under PHA subsidy standards, determination to terminate a family's FSS contract, withhold supportive services, or propose forfeiture of the family's escrow account, determination to pay an owner claim for damages, unpaid rent, or vacancy loss. The PHA must always provide the opportunity for an informal hearing before termination of assistance. The Family Self-Sufficiency Program. The Family Self-Sufficiency Program, also known as FSS, is a 5 to 7 year program designed to assist customers to achieve economic self-sufficiency. Each participant meets regularly with the FSS coordinator to help them work towards their goals. The intermediate goals are based on 3 program tracks that RHE offers, in addition to a general needs assessment. RHE offers the following pathways to success: education, employment, home ownership, and financial literacy to assist participants with reaching their goals. The following services are available: case management and coaching, referrals to services, credit counseling, financial literacy training and counseling, home ownership preparation and counseling, employment services, coaching and counseling, and other program benefits. The Family Self-Sufficiency Program is a great avenue to help you reach your goals, earn and save money, and help you towards your goals of economic independence and home ownership. For more information, you may contact Ms. Stephanie Davis, the FSS coordinator, at 301-424-6265, extension 120. Her email is sdavis@rockvillehe.org. Port-ins do not qualify for the FSS program, but you may apply to be on the waiting list. Home Ownership Program. Rockville Housing Enterprises encourages its residents to learn more about the benefits of home ownership and to pursue it as a worthwhile goal. If you have a Housing Choice Voucher, REQ welcomes residents' participation in the home ownership Housing Choice Voucher program. This program allows the continued use of the voucher for 15 years after the purchase of a home in the city of Rockville. To learn more, please contact Ms. Susan Cheney. She is at 301-424-6265, extension 106. You may also email her at scheney@rockvillehe.org. Please note that port-ins do not qualify. The initial housing authority must be Rockville Housing. You may qualify with your initial housing authority. County resources. How can I learn about other area resources such as hospitals, medical centers, emergency food, recreation centers, public pools, libraries, transportation, etc.? You may call 311, a Montgomery County government resource telephone number. Representatives will help you to find a government program in county service. You can also visit them online at www.montgomerycountymd.gov/311. Customer services. You may call or email to schedule an appointment. Your housing specialist may not be available if you stop by without an appointment. The FSS coordinator can provide information and referral for community resources, including emergency assistance, transportation, food programs, medical, counseling, and social services, and other resources available to county residents. Rockville Housing Enterprises is located at 1300 Picard Drive, Suite 203, Rockville, Maryland 20850. Phone number is 301-424-6265, extension 107. Our hours of operations are Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 4:00 p.m. The attachments that you will receive in your packet will be the City of Rockville Resources and Security Deposit Assistance, Renters Insurance, Tenancy Addendum, lead-based paint, cover, pamphlet, and packet, Landlord and Tenant, cover, pamphlet, and packet, Fair Housing, cover, pamphlet, and packet. This will end the HCV briefing presentation. If you do have any questions or concerns regarding your briefing, you may reach out to your housing specialist. Thank you and have a good day.